Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your host, Billy Willard, and the Blog Squatcher. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Folks, good evening. Today is Monday, October 20th, 2008, last time I checked, and I'm glad that you all could join us for another edition of Sasquatch Watch Radio. God, I can't even talk tonight. I'm just all messed up tonight. How are you doing, DB?
Doing great, Billy. It's good to hear you.
Well, it's good to hear me if I can keep my thoughts straight as I'm trying to talk here. A lot been going on this week, and I got too much on my mind.
Yeah, I hear you.
But as everyone knows, we're going to have a really great guest on tonight. We're going to have Bart Nunnelly, the author of Mysterious Kentucky, and great book. We're going to go into him with that a little bit tonight. But we're going to skip the news that DB so lovingly shares with us a lot of times when we first start the show. And we're going to have another announcement, but the person who's going to make the announcement is someone that you all probably haven't heard in a little while. So we will invite him on the line right now. Mystery caller, reveal yourself.
What is up, Billy? How you doing, DB? Good to hear from you guys again.
What's up, Steve?
How you doing?
I am doing just wonderful. I just wanted to let everybody know I am alive and well, and that January 1st, SquatchDetective.com will be back up and running, and January 5th, 2009, Squatch Detective Radio will launch again on Monday nights. It will either be at 8 p.m. or at 10 p.m. I haven't decided which yet. But that's my announcement, and I couldn't think of a better venue to make that announcement, but to my long good friend and compatriot Billy Weller, and of course DB as well.
Well, we're glad to hear from you, Steve. It's great to hear you, and I'm sure that everyone will certainly want to tune in and listen to your new show, and we're glad that you're back.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope everything is well in Manassas.
John Cartwright says hello.
Well, tell John I said hello as well, and my friends have not been forgotten. And I'll let you guys get on to your show. You guys got a great show lined up. Bart was on Squatch Radio many, probably I think the end of 2006. So, great guest. So, and thank you, Billy, and take care, guys.
All right, thanks, Steve. All right, well, thanks to Steve for calling in. Everybody heard that he made the announcement. He's bringing SquatchDetective.com back, and as well as his radio show, January 2009. So sure there'll be some more news to come on that. So thanks for calling in, Steve. And without further ado, we've got a great guest tonight. As I said before, we've got Mr. Bart Nunnelly from Kentucky on the line with us. Bart, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Billy. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Understand that you're outside tonight.
Oh, yeah. I got a house full of kids, and my son's learning how to play electric guitar, so I figured it'd be better if I just came on outside and talked to you.
You don't want to share none of that great guitar music?
Well, he's a beginner, but he's really doing good, and I'm really proud of him.
That's good. It's good, though. He's getting into music. It's a good thing. Well, Bart, as we typically do, we're right into asking you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, because there may be some folks here that's new, hasn't heard of you. We know that you wrote a book called Mysterious Kentucky, a very interesting book. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, there's not really much to tell, Billy. I'm just a simple Kentucky river boy that was born and raised in the bottomlands of western Kentucky in what most paranormal investigators would call a window area. So as a consequence of that, I've seen and experienced a lot more than my share of unexplained phenomena in my life.
Okay. All right. Now, my understanding is that you did have an encounter with Bigfoot, and I'd like you to tell us about it, because I know that it may be a little different than most. So if you don't mind telling us about that, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I've actually had several encounters with this thing, Billy. When I was 9 years old, we moved into this old farmhouse in Spotsville, Kentucky, and that's where I really had my first introduction personally to this creature. But I've had several encounters throughout my life, and I think the one you're referring to is the one where I was fishing at the lake at night with my little brother. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the one.
Okay. Well, we'd always heard of this lake, and interestingly enough, it's on this location that's called Haunted Hill in Smith Mills, Kentucky, and we'd always heard there were monster bass in this lake, and we wanted for years to fish it, but it was posted, so we decided one night back in the 80s, or one afternoon rather, to sneak in this place and try to get some fish out of there. And the lake is between two old cemeteries. Interestingly enough, it's not very far away from an Indian burial ground as well. But we went into this location, and we only had just a one-man bass boat between 5 people. And we were ferrying each other back and forth across the lake because the snakes were so bad. We couldn't hardly walk without stepping on a water moccasin. But everyone got across the lake, and we fished a while and didn't have very much luck. And it started getting dark, and we decided we was going to call it a day. And so we started going back across the lake one at a time on this bass boat. My brother was taking one at a time back across. And to make a long story short, dark caught me and my little brother, on the other side of this lake, and I just gathered up some wood. We had some kerosene, half a gallon of kerosene in a jug, and the wood had just rained a couple of days earlier, and all the wood was wet, and I had a hard time getting a fire started, but I finally did. And it just had got real, real dark when all of a sudden we start hearing these tree breaks and tree snaps and the sounds of footsteps coming toward us. And the strange thing was, Billy, I've never been scared in the woods in my life. I was born and raised in the woods, and I know the woods, but this is the only time that I've ever been scared in the woods. And as soon as we heard that first tree snap, it was really, really loud. Both my brother and I were just overcome by this feeling of acute fear. I've never felt anything like that.
Right.
And these sounds started coming closer and closer, and I just knew that we were going to die that night. And so I let the sounds get within 10 feet, and they were surrounding us except on all sides except for the lake side. And I let the sounds get within 10 feet, and I threw a bunch of kerosene on that fire to at least see what was going to get us. And there was nothing there to see. There was no eye shine. No sound of breathing or growls or anything, just the loud tree breaks and the footsteps that surrounded us. And as soon as I threw that kerosene on the fire, the light grew, and we could see probably 30 or 40 yards, and there was nothing there, and the sound stopped. But as soon as that light died down, the sound would come back. And it was really a terrifying thing, and it went on until I ran out of kerosene.
Right.
And finally, it was just a little piece of flame, on a little stick, and I grabbed it up. I held it out in front of me, and I told my brother, I said, we're going to go swimming because we're leaving right now. So we backed down toward the lake, and the sounds followed us down to the lake, even where there were no trees and limbs to snap.
Right.
And luckily, we just had got to the lake and was getting ready to dive in when we heard my brother shout, hey, what's going on over there? He saw the fire flaring up, We was hollering for him to hurry up and to come over, and he finally got to the shore, and he said, which one's next? And I said, we're both next. He said, there's no way 3 people can get on this little one-man boat. I said, well, you just watch us. And we all 3 did get on that boat. And it took about an hour to get across the lake. We was barely moving, but it goes to illustrate that, at least to me, that the tree breakings that everyone reports hearing, might possibly be an auditory phenomenon instead of an actual physical one. I don't know how they do it.
You never saw anything.
Never saw anything that time, and we were surrounded. There had to be at least, I would say, 5 or 6 or more of these creatures around us. And, a lot of people ask me, well, how do you know it was Bigfoot? Well, believe me, I know. I ran into this thing before, and it's not something you'll forget. The feeling that you get when you come face to face with something like this, you know what it is, and I knew immediately that it was these creatures. And there was my other brother, my older half brother, actually had told us 10 years before this that him and a buddy were in the same lake out in the middle in a boat, and every time it was late at night, and every time they tried to land the boat, it sounded like elephants were running around, right at the point where they was trying to land, so they would have to push back out, scared them, so they pushed back out, and they had to stay all night out there in the middle of the lake in that boat, and finally at dawn they were able to leave that place. But it's a very spooky place, very scary.
Yeah, that's I've always been kind of interested in that story, and that's definitely a little spooky.
Yeah,
a little spooky.
It definitely was.
Do you have any questions before I take this caller, DB, from the chat room?
Yeah, we got one question from Crypto Seeker. She wants to know what the LBL creature is. Actually, I shouldn't say, it says Carol Ann, so I'm guessing that's her name.
Right.
She wants to know what the LBL creature is. What you think it is?
Well, I'm glad Carol Ann asked that question.
Before you go there, you might want to explain what the LBL creature is, because probably not everybody knows.
Okay, the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes creature, it's a dogman creature, and there seems to be a lot of confusion out there, even among really seasoned researchers, as to what this thing is. It's definitely, I'm here to tell you, it's not a Bigfoot. Bigfoot are not described as having long, pointed ears, a canine snout with fangs, claws, and lupine or canine legs, as the dogman is. And so, as hard as it might be to accept the fact that there is definitely more than one hairy humanoid creature out there that people are seeing. These are not reports of, or just confused reports of Bigfoot activity. These are something entirely different. And basically, it's just a new name for a very, very old enigma, and it's basically a werewolf. It's what even the old timers today, they've never been online, they never heard of cryptozoology or anything like that. They call these things werewolves because that's what they look like.
Gotcha. Let's see. Let me grab this caller real quick. He's been holding very patiently. I think I know who this is. Is this Henry May?
Yes, this is Henry May.
How are you doing tonight, Henry?
Oh, just fine. I'm interested in the subject, of the dogman. The reports. Of course, there's reports in more than one state. Of course, I wanted to ask Bart about the Land Between the Lakes and the murder that occurred there. I imagine he knows what I'm talking about. That was
sure.
Yeah, that was on the John Johnson documentary, Hunt the Dog Man.
Yeah, we filmed that last summer, John and I. So I actually went down there and to check out what was happening. And what it is, Henry, is it's actually 4 murders, alleged murders, I should say, of a vacationing family down there that were found ripped to pieces. And according to the story, the news was effectively hushed up by government agents, if you will. And we went down there and we talked to the main witness, which was a lady named Jan Thompson, and she was people know her online as a writer. She's written a lot of stories there, but I can honestly say that she was 100% sincere, and anyone who gets the Hunt the Dog Man DVD I'm sure will agree with me. 100% believable, but I have to say there is no evidence that these murders actually took place other than that one story. But I was down there, and as soon as we got there, John and I, we were tailed by a white van with government plates. We checked into the hotel room. These people in the white van checked into the room right beside us. And while we were doing our investigation, I was contacted by a man named Buck. He was a quadriplegic on his deathbed, and he heard that I was coming down there to look into this matter, and he called me up and wanted to tell me before he died that 20 years earlier in the 1960s, a similar event had taken place down there. With him and a group of 20 friends, they were camping out on this island in Kentucky Lake, and they heard these screams coming from shore. And when the guys in the group went to investigate, they found a trailer with no one in it, but was just covered in blood. And the grass in front of the trailer was covered in blood, as if several people had been murdered there. And he told me that he knew what game blood smelled like, deer blood and stuff like that, and this did not smell like that. He thought that it was human blood that they were seeing. And of course, they all left quickly. And I asked him, I said, well, Buck, did you watch the TV and newspapers for any news of this? He said, yeah, I watched it for weeks, and there was never one word written up or said about who was in that trailer and what might have happened to him.
Dang.
So if these reports are correct, there is some kind of monster down in Livingston and Lyon counties in the Land Between the Lakes area, and the campers there might be in danger.
Wow. All right, I wanted to ask you one more question before I turn it over to Bill Green, who's also on the line with me. Have you seen the photo of the Beast of Seven Shoots? And the reason I ask is because it appears to have almost a baboon-like face, or it appears to have a snout.
Right.
Do you think it's a Sasquatch, or do you think it is a dog man?
No. First of all, the photo of the Beast of Seven Shoots, I'm not really convinced of what it is. It seems, there were several other photos taken for comparison, and the animal in the photo seems really, really small, whereas the dog men are typically described as 6, 7, and even 8 foot tall. And also, it looked purple to me, Henry. I don't know, but the coloring was all wrong, and But if it is an actual creature in that photograph, I would say that it would probably be a dog man and not a Bigfoot.
Okay, well, Bill, I know you've got some questions to ask.
Hey, Bart, how you doing?
Hey, Bill, how are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm great. Hey, Billy, DB.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, yeah, Bart, are you currently investigating any new Kentucky Bigfoot sightings or footprints or strange screams?
Well, Bill, everyone I've been on the chat rooms and on the boards, and I hear everybody say, "Oh, it's such a slow year for Bigfoot. There's no Bigfoot activity going on right now." But let me tell you something. In Kentucky, it never stops. It's a year-round thing, and I have a year's worth of back reports that I still have to investigate, and waiting on the contact info right now. My partner, my Kentucky Bigfoot website partner, he's going through some personal issues right now, and he's not able to get the info that I need. But yes, we will be working on those real soon.
Okay. And are you working on any new books or documentaries about the dog man or Bigfoot?
Sure. I'm working on a book right now called Inhumanoids, Real Encounters with Creatures That Can't Exist, which not only covers the Bigfoot subject, but all the other inhumanoid creatures that people tend to see and report. And it's a funny thing that, most Bigfoot researchers, they readily agree that there's an ape man, the possibility of an ape man running around, but they totally discount the possibility that there's a dog man or a lizard man or a goat man or a moth man, when in reality, each of these creatures is just as possible or impossible as the one before it. So there's a lot of creatures out there that are half human and half animal running around, and Bigfoot and the Dog Man is not just the only one. But that book should be out sometime next year, Bill. Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, I still enjoy reading your the first book, The Mysterious Kentucky.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I really do.
Read it again, Billy.
Yeah, but yeah, I go on. There's a Kentucky Bigfoot cam that's on the internet now. I don't know if you ever gone to it.
Sure.
It's pretty neat. It's really addictive to watch because you don't know what the person's going to put out in the bait pile. You see something possible.
Have they seen anything yet on that cam, Bill?
I've seen possible stuff. You know what I mean? That could be a Sasquatch, but I'm not there to say yes, no, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's kind of the same thing. We get videos and pictures, and it's just so hard to make out what we're seeing.
Right. But to answer the second part of your question, Bill, about if I'm going to do any more documentaries, John and I are discussing plans to do a follow-up to the Hunt the Dog Man DVD.
Yeah.
And it will probably focus on the Spottsville Monster Soap this time. That's really just an incredible story, and only a few aspects of it have come to light. I haven't written about it all, and there's a lot more to that story that needs to be told. So that will probably be our next project.
Yeah, and actually there is a new documentary on Amazon.com called The Wild Man of Kentucky. I guess it's coming out officially on DVD November 21st, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'll have to get that and watch it.
Well, thanks, Bill, for asking Bart questions. Thank you, Henry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys.
Hope you have a great show. Nice talking to you again, Bart.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, same here, Bill.
Thank you very much, Bart.
Bye.
Thank you, Henry.
Later, guys.
All right, DB, do you have any questions over there on your side?
No, we don't have any questions per se.
Okay.
We have had some skeptical comments about what Bart was saying about the other man-like creatures being just as possible as Bigfoot, and I would like to hear what Bart has to say about some of these points that were made about the multiple kinds of man-like monsters. And many of these others, they don't have the same number of sightings that Bigfoot might have. The Wolfman sightings would probably be one that might get the closest, but those I suspect are still many less of those across North America at least than there are Bigfoot. And also, there's a basis, at least, speculating. You could speculate a basis for the existence of a man-like creature that has gorilla features, because we have those in the fossil record. There are many of them. Most of them have died out, unless you're talking about gorillas or human beings. Most of them have died out, but they're there in the fossil record, and there isn't anything for, say, a wolf man or a lizard man in the fossil record. So how would you address those criticisms?
Well, I would say that, when someone sees something that bizarre, the chances are they're not going to tell anyone. If you saw a lizard man, for instance, which, there's one on my Kentucky Bigfoot site that happened in Breckenridge, you're not going to tell people because they think you're crazy. Now, with Bigfoot, it's different because we have so many sightings and it seems to be escalating. But with the other beastmen sightings, don't really tell people like that unless you know them or unless they're close family, and even then you might not say anything. But people see just about everything, and through my own experience, I tend to be a little more lenient than someone that has never even seen a Bigfoot. When someone tells me they've seen something that looked like a frog with human legs or whatever, frog man or a lizard man or a goat man, I don't immediately discount that, because I've had so many strange experiences myself that, you know, who am I to say what's possible or impossible in the world? You know, we don't know everything. There's still a lot about this world that we don't know.
Right.
And
well, I wondered if you
wouldn't
take that.
everyone tends to believe or disbelieve to their own paradigm, you know, and some are more broader than others, and you know, that's all I can say. I don't disbelieve someone just because what they're telling me is unbelievable, because I've seen the unbelievable myself time and time again.
Right. Well, I wondered if you wouldn't take that experience that you had yourself, where you heard the branch snaps even after you had left the woods. That seems to be something that, you know, you could easily attribute to a paranormal source. And once you start talking about the paranormal, it can appear like anything, can it? I mean, if you're going to believe in the paranormal, then it can take any appearance.
Listeners are not, right, I know listeners are not really, a lot of them are not into that aspect of it, but I don't apologize for my own experiences, DB, and I don't apologize for the way I interpret them, because, you know, we each have to do this. If we see something, we have to interpret it with our mind according to our belief system. So my belief is there is more to these Bigfoot creatures than most researchers want to admit. That's my personal belief, and it's something that I've experienced myself, not something that I've read in a book or a magazine, not something that I've seen on TV. It's something that I've lived myself, and that's all I have to offer. I'm not trying to make anybody believe like me. I don't have any agenda. As an investigator, I don't believe that I should interpret the data that I collect or present. I leave that to the people who are reading it or watching it. You know, they can interpret themselves according to their own belief system. I'm just presenting it. I know what's happened to me. I know it's strange. I know most Bigfoot researchers would discount most of what I say, but, you know, all I can say is I don't care even a little about what other people think, because, you know, I know. It's right. A personal thing, just like with everybody.
Right. I'm most interested in when somebody comes and they bring their own personal experience. That's the thing I'm most interested in. I become less interested as the stories get further and further away, like somebody said it, or I heard somebody say it, or somebody said they said it to my friend. You get less interested as those get further and more remote from you. But your experience is very interesting to me. So if you've got more of them, I'm all ears to hear them, absolutely. And I think most of our listeners probably take the same attitude.
Well, you know, because of where I was born and raised, these window areas, which are just areas where multiple seemingly unrelated paranormal or unexplained phenomena tend to overlap. I've lived in haunted houses, and, you know, we'd go outside and there Bigfoot would be roaming around and in our window stuff. And here's something else that the listeners probably won't want to hear, but while this was happening, UFOs were flying over our house. You know, how do you interpret that? You have to interpret it, at least I do, that somehow these things might just be connected, even though they seem to be unrelated. How does all these phenomena manifest themselves in one specific area, in one specific time frame? It's the odds of that happening are beyond impossible, unless they're somehow related.
Yeah, I would say that this is not the first time I'm hearing about UFOs, poltergeist activity, and Bigfoot being in the same area. Not hauntings per se, but weird things that happen for a short time in the house, like things are moving around in the house. I've seen a few of those, and I've gotten a report directly from a couple of people from that have had these things happen. And you know, I'm interested, but I have absolutely no answer as to why those things would happen.
Right. Well,
I don't
there are no answers. You know, they're only experiences which you either believe or don't. Everything I say will either be believed or dismissed according to people's own belief system, and that's fine with me. You know, I have no problem with that. I have lots of friends. A lot of them believe differently. A lot of them believe that Bigfoot is simply an unclassified species of ape, and we get along great. You know, I'm not trying to force my views on anyone, but I can tell you what I have lived myself, and I know myself. And these things happen to me, and I make no apologies for that. Believe it or not, as you want.
Right, and you can understand why those people would have that attitude,
Sure.
since, the vast majority of Bigfoot sightings are really kind of mundane events. Somebody runs into a thing that looks like a giant hairy ape man, and, nothing paranormal happens except maybe they get really, really frightened. But, seeing that would be enough to really frighten you.
Sure. Anybody.
Sometimes they'll say, I felt like something was staring at me. That's like the strangest thing that most of them will ever say. But
here's a question
most of them are very mundane.
Right. Here's a question I can pose to those out there, of that mindset. Across America, especially in the state of Kentucky, we have millions of acres of unspoiled virgin forest and wilderness that no one goes into, ever. I've trekked for days and days into these wilderness areas and never saw a sign of a human being. Okay, into these areas, 10,000 Bigfoot creatures could go and would never be seen by the human eye. It just would not happen. And there's places that even hunters won't go. But they don't do this. They tend to hang around the outskirts of society and civilization, eat out of dumpsters, look in windows, kill dogs. Why do they do this? Why do they, on a lonely road late at night, why do they step out in front of those headlights instead of waiting a couple seconds for that car to pass and step out behind the car and never be seen? You have to ask the right questions to get any kind of answers. And I've never been one to stop at what's presented on the surface. I've always wanted to know what's going on below the surface level. And that's why I ask, when I interview someone, I ask them a whole series of questions that they probably think I'm crazy for even asking, and I'm probably the only one today that asks these questions. But it's interesting what comes to light. If you ask a Bigfoot witness, have you ever seen anything other than this that someone might consider unexplained? Have you ever lived in a haunted house? Is there moving bodies or still bodies of water or caves near your sighting area? Is there cemeteries near your sighting area? All these things add up to a more complete picture than if you just go and record this witness's statement. And believe it or not, I'm going to say this, in my area, this might not be, concerned with anyone else's research areas other than right here in Western Kentucky, but in my area, when I ask these questions, 7 out of 10 witnesses will answer affirmatively that they have seen a UFO in their life. They have lived in a haunted house. They have seen something else they could not explain, and that goes way beyond what you would expect to hear from, just mere chance. It's just way beyond that. So, again, you can take that or leave it. It might not have anything to do with anywhere else other than where I live right now, but that's the truth.
Well, we thank you for sharing it, Bart. I mean, that's
You're
what
welcome.
we're here for.
You're welcome, Billy.
You will share that with us. Now, we've got a caller that's been patiently holding on. Area code 443. You're on the air.
Oh, I'm on?
You are on. Who is it?
Oh, hey, this is Andrew from Maryland.
Hey, Andrew. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I have a question for Bart.
All right.
I was wondering, are the reports of the dog beast you're talking about have any similarities with the Bray Road beast?
The Bray Road beast?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew. Actually, they're all similar, and they've happened for thousands of years all around the world. And, the beast of LBL is no different than the beast of Bray Road, which, Wisconsin and Michigan and East Texas, Pennsylvania, they happen, Ohio. They happen all over the place. It's not just an isolated event, but, they happen all over the place, and they've happened for thousands of years, and people just call them werewolves. And only today, someone thought of the name Dogman. But it's really an old mystery that still goes on.
All right. I was just wondering.
All right, thanks for your question.
You got any more questions for him, Andrew?
No. That'll be all. Just want to tell you I like your show, and I'll hopefully be calling soon.
All right. Thanks a lot for calling in, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, DB. You know what? I almost forgot. We got to go to a quick commercial break.
It's
past
that
my
time again.
So, folks, we will be right back as soon as we have this commercial. Everybody will take a breather, and we will be right back in just a few minutes.
You are listening to Sasquatch Watch Radio. Stay tuned. Over recent years, the traditional office has become more of a touchpad than a daily destination. Long gone is the reliance on a landline to work away from the office. More people are performing work from home or other locations thanks to technologies like GoToMyPC that lets you take your office wherever you go. With GoToMyPC, you have freedom from the office, enhanced work-life balance, and increased work flexibility. When choosing a remote access service, you need to make sure it's easy to set up, easy to use, and affordable. That's why you need GoToMyPC, and you can try it free for 30 days. For this special offer, visit gotomypc.com/podcast. That's gotomypc.com/podcast. Take your office with you wherever you go with GoToMyPC.
All right. Made that short and sweet. We do have a caller hanging on the line, and I believe it's a Skype user. You are on live with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Who are we speaking with?
This is the Creature Seeker.
Hey, Bruce. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I just had a question for Bart regarding the Beast of LBL.
All right.
And, well, first, just to give you a little bit of history, I, many years ago, I spent some time over at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about it, it's basically an abandoned, supposedly haunted hospital out in just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. And so I met a lot of people there, and at the time, we were doing an overnight investigation of the structure, and some weird things happened there. But I remember talking to someone from the Louisville Ghost Hunters Society, and we were just talking about random things and outdoors, and because Kentucky has a lot of basically very rural areas. And he told me the story, and at the time I didn't really think anything of it because it was just so outlandish. But then when just recently I became aware of the Dog Man and the Beast of LBL, and so it just sort of piqued my curiosity, and I remembered the story they told me. And basically what he told me was that his cousin, who's an avid hunter, who loved to hunt, would go out in the woods all the time to hunt, had an encounter. He was hunting deer, and I guess he was camped out along a hedgerow, and at the end of the field he saw what looked like a very large canine, a very large dog, and he described it as a German Shepherd. And there was nothing really special about this animal except that it was very large. And he said that at one point it stood up on its hind legs, which, I used to own a German Shepherd, and that's not something that they do for extended periods of time. But he said it stood up on its hind legs, and at that point he estimated that this creature had to be at least 7 or 8 feet tall on its hind legs, which is a pretty big animal. he apparently the incident scared him so much that he well, that was pretty much the last time he went out in the woods to hunt. And this person told me this, related this account to me, and at the time I said, all right, well, that sounds strange, but I mean, I've never heard of any dogman or werewolf before. And at that time, I'd never heard of the Beast of Bray Road or anything, and werewolves were just basically a figment of Hollywood. So the more when I read about the Dogman and the Beast of LBL, it just sort of it kind of piqued my interest because it's just so outlandish and so strange that it's really hard to wrap my mind around. So Bart, my question to you is, I know you've touched on this before, but many of these stories go back a long time, and why are they so different than sort of the regular, I saw like a Sasquatch or ape-like creature? I mean, what is it about this area or the folklore that would make people, describe the creature like this, or what is it about this area that's so prone to these sort of sightings?
Well, Bruce, Kentucky, the Indians called it the dark and bloody ground, and they felt that Kentucky was a cursed land for some reason, and this might have something to do with it. But I know this state is really unlike any other state when it comes to unexplained phenomena. The prevalence of things like that here is overwhelming. Even in my area, the UFO phenomenon, for example, they're so common here that no one even bothers to report them. I've seen dozens of these things, and maybe only 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years has any of the sightings made the news. But Kentucky, it has more miles of navigable waterways than any other state in the lower 48 states, and it also has the largest underground cavern system in the known world, Mammoth Caves there in south central Kentucky. So, all I can say is it's a unique place, and it's really strange here. It really is. And I have no answer for why, people here are prone to see these things more than anywhere else, other than the fact that it might have something to do with the Native Americans. There's a lot of burial mounds here where I live. There's probably 1,000 of them just in my county. So, there might be a tentative connection there. I really don't know.
Well, it's just weird because I've talked to 3 people from Kentucky, and they all have related an incident that of a person who they trust and who they feel is credible, of a type of creature that has canine appearances. But I'm from upstate New York. I've never heard of any such stories, and so it's just it's just around that area down there in the LBL area that these stories abound. So I was just wondering. Right.
But just remember, Bruce, the truth is the truth. No matter who believes it or disbelieves it, the truth doesn't change. If someone tells you they've seen a dog man, if it's true, it's always going to be true, no matter whether you believe it or not. And I've always tried to keep that an open mind when I talk to witnesses like that. And just look on the Kentucky Bigfoot website, you'll see lots of reports of that nature.
I just wanted to add that a friend of mine who's a Bigfoot researcher put an ad in the paper looking for Bigfoot reports in central West Virginia, and he did get a report from a guy who had seen something with a snout, a dog-like snout. And he said that they were known in his area by the name of beamer. They were called beamers. So apparently it's, at least in one area in West Virginia, something like that is also known. So I don't think it's, just in one little isolated spot in Kentucky.
It's not. It happens all over the world.
Kentucky and West Virginia are neighbors, but
right.
They're pretty far away from where he's talking about, where Bart's talking about, is where this sighting was. So, there's isolated reports of this stuff out there. But the question is, what is it that people are seeing? Is it possible that Bigfoot can have some sort of abnormality that makes them have a really long nose?
No, I don't think so, Bruce. What abnormality can explain the lupine legs? I mean,
Yeah.
they're two different
this guy
creatures.
didn't say lupine legs, so if he wouldn't have. Maybe he just didn't notice them. But he said it looked like a man, except it had a dog's nose.
Well, my personal opinion is it's not the same creature at all.
You know, another thing that's interesting is that whole account of that family that was supposedly murdered down in the LBL area. Now, if you read theguardiantales.com, Jan relates the story rather articulately of, basically it was a family of campers. In general, because the season gets so overcrowded with tourists, it's very common for people to go before the season starts to stake out a campground. And apparently this family of 4, they were brutally murdered, according to Jan's account. And, to make a long story short, one of the members of the family was found in a tree, and it looked like whatever had put that person's body in the tree was basically, feasting on the body. Now, the story just sounds, like I said, it sounds very outlandish. But I've never met Jan, but from what I gather, you're telling me that she's seems fairly credible in her account.
Yes, she does. And get the DVD Hunt the Dog Man, and you can watch her tell that story herself. And she had to stop a couple of times because she was crying. She was so emotional about it. If she was lying or acting, then she deserves an Oscar for that performance she put on while I was there talking to herself.
Well, it's just very interesting. I'd like to actually go on an expedition down in the LBL area, but I've seen pictures of it, and that forest down there is very dark, very very heavily thicketed, and I think that's sort of a different environment from what most of us are used to, because I grew up in the woods in upstate New York, but from what I've seen of the pictures of the LBL, I mean that's almost a whole different place.
Yeah, it's a really, really creepy place with a spooky atmosphere, and to be there at night, roaming around like I was, and I had a CD that I had made of human baby cries, because I've heard for years that Bigfoot and what have you, if you play that sound of a human baby crying, they would investigate it. And I also I hung up in the tree 2 30-pound deer hams that were just dripping blood, and I thought, surely, if there's anything here, it's going to either going to be attracted to that meat, bloody meat, or the sounds of the human baby crying. But if there was anything there, it stayed away. And we did see signs the day previously. We'd seen scratch marks on the ground. We'd seen a sapling stepped on and bent over and broken. And you could see where the foot had actually rubbed the bark off that sapling when it did it. And, we were grown men, there was 3 grown men, and we tried it on the sapling next to it. It was exactly the same size, and we could not bend that sapling. But whatever this was had stepped on it at the base and broken it, So it was something really heavy. We found a huge mound of mussel shells that something had brought up from the lake and eaten there. Right, and this is at the site of the alleged Dogman murders. That's exactly where we were at. And it was a really creepy thing. And, you can't have any firearms in there. And I was planning on, staying deep in that brush for 2 or 3 days. But the people I was with, when they saw that we couldn't have any firearms for protection, they said, no way, we're going to stay at the hotel, Bart, and we're not going to risk it. Mm-hmm. So it's really a different world than a normal Bigfoot investigation, where you feel there's no threat. You're just out there trying to gather data and maybe luck up on a sighting. But this here is a whole different atmosphere.
Yeah, I guess it does pose a whole new element of danger to the investigation. Right. But look, I know there are other callers, but I just want to say great show, Bill, and keep it up.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, we have a caller from the 804 area code. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Billy, how are you, sir? This is Elsewise, otherwise known as PV2U on the forums. How are you, sir?
Hey, man. Talked to you many times on the forum. Never talked to you in person. It's great you called in.
There we go. We're making progress, aren't we?
There you go.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for Bart. I was going to ask him, there seems to be so many choices when it comes to paranormal research in Kentucky. What sort of phenomenon does he find himself, or I'll address it to Bart, what sort of phenomenon do you find yourself researching the most? Is it the Bigfoot? Is it the Dogman? Is it LBL? Hauntings? What do you find yourself spending the most time on?
Well, I find myself spending more time on the cryptozoological aspects in my area. You know, not only do we have these hairy humanoids, but we have other things here as well that's never been classified, like the gravedigger. If you go on the Kentucky Bigfoot website and check into that report, that's something that, you know, I've never personally seen reported anywhere else. And, you know, we have all kinds of strange animals here, water, aquatic anomalies, you know. And in 1998, my wife and I saw, believe it or not, I mean, the more I say, the more incredible it sounds, but in 1998, my wife and I were driving through Smith Mills, Kentucky, and saw what looked like a pterosaur flying in the air with a 20-foot wingspan. And,
wow.
You know, it's just really an incredible place. And there's no telling what you can see here, and, you know, there's no telling what might happen. But I'm more drawn to the cryptozoological aspects of the investigations because, quite honestly, the spectral phenomena, it scares the crap out of me. You know, I've had my own experience with ghosts and things like that, and nothing scares me like that. Nothing scares me than the thought of being alone in a house or a room with a ghost in there. It's just a character flaw. I don't know, but that's how I am.
Okay, well, I got a couple real quick questions, and I know we have another caller on the line, so I'll go ahead and get off. But you mentioned that Kentucky seems to be a window area or a hot spot for paranormal activity. Do you find that these sightings or this phenomenon follows areas, or does it follow people as well? In other words, is it concentrated to an area?
That's a good question. Actually, I think it's more of an area. I mean, people, they're always saying, well, you must be psychic, you must have the sight or something to see all this stuff. But, you know, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just an average guy who just happened to live in places that these things manifested themselves. So I would take the area and answer that question.
Okay, and I got one more quick one for Billy. Hey, Billy, what happened to the Minnesota lead from last week? I think a girl was going to get in contact with you. Did anything ever come of that?
Yes, she did get in contact with me, and I put her in contact with actually the fella who's having the activity. I put him in contact with someone that's in his area. Someone that comes to our shows quite frequently, and you know, someone that I know is going to treat him well. So.
Okay, perfect. All right, y'all have a good night.
I'll keep everybody informed on that, though.
All right, nice talking to y'all.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling.
All right, see ya.
All right, and let me grab this caller as well. Caller from the 865 area code. You're on live with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, Billy, this is Ron over in East Tennessee.
Hey, Ron, how you doing, man?
Oh, we're making it, brother.
Well, that's good. Well, I guess you're on the phone with a nearby neighbor there in Kentucky.
I reckon so. I have a question for Bart, and forgive me ahead of time, everybody, because I've purposely steered clear of this stuff, and I'm asking these questions because I really don't know. I don't want to question anybody's veracity, but in the Bigfoot world, over the last 30 years, I can think of 3 or 4 documentaries that I've seen where they've put people on a polygraph test to see whether or not they were telling truth about having a Bigfoot sighting. So my question to Bart is, anybody that's had one of these dogman sightings, do you know of anyone who's taken and passed a polygraph test? And then also, as a backup question, I saw somebody in the chat room wrote and was asking about track castings and this sort of thing. I have always personally attributed these dogman sightings to misidentified Bigfoot sightings because that's what I wanted them to be.
Oh, Ron, I think we lost you.
I'm still here.
There you are.
Okay, Ron. I personally don't know of anyone that's ever taken a lie detector test in regards to a sighting of a Bigfoot or a dogman, but personally, I would be more than willing to do that. I have nothing to hide, and I don't lie. It's simply because I don't really care who believes me or not. This is who I am, and I don't apologize for the things that's happened to me or my interpretation of these things. So I would be more than willing to do that, but I don't know personally of anyone that ever has, no.
Okay, I don't know where my phone cut out and where you guys lost me. I saw somebody had written in the chat room that they were asking about whether or not there were any track castings taken.
Of Bigfoot or the dogman?
Of the dogman.
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, that was pretty much it, Billy. Thanks for taking my call, buddy.
Oh, thanks for calling, Ron.
You bet. Take care.
All right, DB, we got to all the callers, so I need to check in with you to see if there was any more questions from chat.
I didn't catch any.
Okay.
We only got a couple of minutes left anyway, but no, I didn't catch any. So now we're going to find out what Bart wants to talk about.
Well, I tell you what, Bart, since we've only got a couple of minutes left, I would like to know, this was a question I actually come up with, do you have yourself any advice for the researchers, the new researchers, the old researchers, everybody's out here doing their research? What advice do you have for them?
Well, Billy, my advice would be to keep an open mind and just realize that in the end, we're all one big family here on this planet, and we're all looking for answers just like everyone else, and our time is short, so let's not push and shove. You don't have to believe like me. I don't have to believe like you to be friends, so let's all just get along and do our own thing. That would be my advice.
I agree with that. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I constantly say that this field, cryptozoology, whatever you want to call it, Bigfoot, whatever, would do so much better if everyone would network and cooperate with one another, share information with one another. That's what needs to be done. And I just don't see any negatives to that.
There's not, and we shouldn't focus so much on the reporters. We should focus on the information. Goes back to the Eric Vector thing. Rest in peace, Eric. But he would call me up, just time and time again, and I said, "Look, Eric, why are you being such a narcissistic butthole? Why are you focusing on the researchers instead of the quarry? I don't get it." And after that, he seemed to like me fine. But at first, there was a lot of I just didn't care for the guy at all and the way he went about. But we shouldn't focus so much on trying to detract from the people who are trying to bring this information to everyone else. Let's focus on the information, even if it doesn't jive with what your own pet theories are. At least keep an open mind and know that other people are out there and they're having these experiences, and they're not lying.
Yep. Well, Bart,
that's well said. Hey, there is one last question. It's a quick one. Are you going to do a Dogman 2?
Yes, John and I are talking about doing a follow-up to the Hunt the Dogman. Yes, we are.
All right, there it is. Crypto Secret,
well, Bart,
there's your answer.
We thank
and
you so
Carol
much.
Ann, tell Carol Ann for me that her book will be there in time for Halloween.
Okay, well, she heard you, I'm sure.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you so much, Bart. We really appreciate you coming on the show. It was great, and we hope you would take an invite from us again in the future.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Billy DB. I had a blast. Anytime.
Thanks a lot.
Great
DB,
show.
thank you a lot for being on as my great co-host.
You're
And next week, folks, next Monday night, we have Rick Knoll from Washington State's going to be on the show. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. And if everybody can join us next week when we bring Rick Knoll in here from Washington State. Y'all have a good evening.